It says Seattle may walk back wage hike for delivery drivers. Drivers for apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats say their earnings have plummeted since the $26.40 hourly minimum went into effect. The city of Seattle is reconsidering the big wage hike it handed to app-based delivery drivers earlier this year after drivers said it hurt their earnings rather than helped. So I will say, if this is true, just because one person in the government is considering it doesn't mean there's enough to support it. I am on board for trying things. They tried something and they're listening to the driver population and they're making reconsiderations. It doesn't mean it goes back to how it was before. Just because you implement something new and it doesn't work, you can still work at it until it does work. So don't think I'm saying, yeah, let's go back to the way it was before. Let's, I'm very accepting of people who are willing to reconsider their stances. Very accepting of it, very forgiving of it. I assume people believe what they believe because they're trying to protect people. And if that thing that they thought would protect people isn't protecting people, it's very important. The person who turns around when they're lost will get to their destination quicker than someone who is committed to being lost. You see what I'm saying? That's kind of what I'm getting at. City Council President Sarah Nelson told Seattle's KRO News Radio last week that she's talking with drivers and delivery apps about changing the city's pay up legislation that raised drivers' minimum wage to $26.40 an hour on January 13th. This is an example of legislation that is having unintended consequences, that is having wide impacts. If you have been here on my podcast and you've been following my points and what I'm saying, I have said it from the beginning, that just because there is some kind of positive thing that looks positive on paper doesn't mean it's not going to have unintended consequences. There's a saying, it's like, if you're a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I feel like I was the villain, and as time progresses, I'm living long enough. I don't want to call myself a hero. I'm not a hero, but the assumptions I made previously, the data seems to be pointing towards it possibly being right, even though I want to be wrong, because I want drivers to make money. I just have to accept and understand what the world really is versus what I want it to be. There's a difference between how things are and what you hope for things to be. You have to be able to differentiate between those two. The rate includes an hourly base wage as well as 80 cents per mile and coverage of certain expenses. It is well above Seattle's regular minimum wage of $19.97, which is the highest in the US. Delivery apps including DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub responded to the increase by adding $5 regulatory response fee to customers' checks, as well as bumping up some of their other service charges, resulting in noticeably higher prices for consumers. This feels dirty, and this is why I want to push the conversation that we need more transparency from these companies. If we want to sit back and say, oh, they're only increasing it by $5 to respond to the new law, that'd be evil of them. But there's no way for us to prove it. And that's what the problem is. I think that these publicly traded companies, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, I think they should have to have a larger amount of transparency. We need to be seeing the specific numbers. I think Seattle and New York have laws that make that the case. I'm not going to do it now because we're running out of time, but I'm going to see if I can find some more information in regards to that. It says the pay hike also attracted more drivers to the city, which increased supply just as demand for delivery was falling, said Michael Wolf, executive director of local driver advocacy group Drive Forward. This is basic, and econ was not easy for me, especially because it had nothing to do with my degree field. And if you didn't go to college or if you didn't take econ, I get it. But what we are taught in econ is that supply and demand matters. I know that seems abstract, but if the supply of drivers increases and the demand for food delivery decreases, you see what I'm saying? That's what's happening here. It's all correlated, and the price affects all of it. So that there is a sweet spot, there is some play and give to it. And the reason why I say New York City probably has the best model, because New York City artificially caps how many people can be a TNC driver. So some number at 70,000. And they reconsider twice a year to increase it or not increase it. So because they have a cap on how many drivers are in the supply of drivers, they can afford to play around with wage changes a little more because they have a cap. Now, I don't know what the best model would be, but if Minneapolis had a cap on drivers, I might reconsider my position on how much this would actually hurt drivers, but they don't have a cap. And exactly what's happening here in Seattle could very well happen in Minneapolis. If you disagree with that, you let me know why, and try to be as logical as possible. I want to be proven wrong. I don't want to be right about this. I don't. I just think that I will be. According to a new survey by the group, drivers are now seeing fewer offers, longer gaps between trips, and lower tips. As a result, most are earning 25 to 30% less than Seattle's regular minimum wage before tips. It made the problem worse. The findings have been supported by data from the delivery app. DoorDash earlier this month said that in 2 weeks after PayUp went live, customers placed 30,000 fewer orders, costing businesses more than $1 million. Grubhub on Monday reported that drivers are now waiting an average of 102 minutes between orders, an increase of 437% compared to before the law was implemented. That is insane. That is insane. I'm going to do some quick math here. I'm going to take this 102 minutes. We're going to go to bar.google.com and we're going to say, how many times can 102 minutes go into, let's say, an 8-hour shift, 8 hours. And this is going to tell us the amount of orders that they can get over the course of an 8-hour shift. So it's like there are 4 times that 102 minutes can fit into 8 hours. And they explain how it gets solved. But so let's assume it's like 4 point something. So 4 to 5 orders over the course of 8 hours. That's insane. I feel sorry for you guys out there. I really do. I'm actually like really upset. I'm really upset. Wolf said that he expected the city council to begin working on new legislation next week, with votes to come in early April. I'm not as upset now. I'm happy that they've tried something, they didn't work, they're trying something else. Neither Nelson nor the city council at large had responded to a request for comment as of publication time.